Hey, this is called HMS EMPATH, and it's about being a total selfless empath and taking on everyone else's issues and baggage and monkeys, and sometimes for good, but it's the danger of not doing anything for yourself and just keep absorbing everyone else's energy, and sometimes it can backfire. It's written in the style of the empath being, it's a nautical theme, of course, of being both the captain and the ship. And I flip between the character being both on purpose because it is one of the same. And it's the concept of someone being at sea and how that feels as well. It's called HMS EMPATH. When the word broke that he had been sighted alongside, not at port but in dry dock, the whispers cycloned around the clock and embedded themselves into wooden beams of aging buildings. It was a given to be forgiven that his hull would last a lifetime. How very sublime and probably sobering to see him back in pieces with holes so big the fish swam through in shoals as they pushed from within to get just him home. With lessons learnt from 100 wrecks that littered the seabed, despite shipbuilding expertise and 1,000 cross-checks, they still seemed to sink when the pressure was exerted, and the crew they deserted then looked on from their shore as their future inverted, funnel detached, and sea became victor. The sea, the Federer of winning, the Hamilton of getting the upper hand without pomp or making a stand, she will consume the unsuspected and ill-prepared as she searches souls now bared, not smooth, none collected, but coarse and impaired. What the dock workers forgot, it was 2 years and 2 since the steel plates were welded by women and men until the thickness numbered 10. The same tenure of years that he could endure against the ice at times, and maybe some concrete as the bows smashed down walls, all honed into a heartbeat of ones that called to be saved, and so a path he paved, and the course it was set in the ship's log recorded, never to forget, as he wants to be measured by souls he saved, when one day he is at one in the corals, content with his life of goodness and morals. In truth, he lasted twice longer than expected before the bridge became affected and the compass infected by the wet and the mould as he grew tired and old. But the lighter, when it's first built, it sat lower in the water, lower than it oughta, which is why he came back in when the water filled compartments and the cargo left compartments. When he woke up dry, sitting on chocks, engine now off, clear skies, the sea beyond the reef not rough, he could hear the workers all around prodding at his shell and tapping like hell the steel, which echoed a sound of a melancholy bell to call people to one place with a view to embrace, to reflect, and to learn why they don't see his smokestack drifting to the sky. The truth is, what no one saw through the calm sea and squalls was at each port that he went to, as he answered the many calls for the cargo to be taken, the burdens that would break him, and the odd SOS which teared off the plates, left a little more mess. What no one saw was with Morse code answered, people and goods transferred into the safety of his hold and onto his bridge. The people they tied a rolling hitch around his arms, which stopped him from steering. Feeling ropes getting tighter, and his hull became misshapen, with every monkey taken as the payoff, which neither felt nor seen, was extra weight absorbed, and the research not new, and written into 100 accords by experts of body and mind, was that you will lose some of your strength and watertight integrity, your flexible frame and fun-filled dexterity. If you don't dock into refit, you'll be too unfit to not only sit, but also propel the bow into the swell. You must grind down rusty nails, bolt down an engine, replace the sails, and then weld, then smooth, then paint, so the rust stays away, never to taint. That added steel armour, plate by plate, they just fell away quietly into the sea. And was this foreseen? Well, not by those who jumped on with glee and was happy to see him taking their load and to share their burden, and with their uncertainty his fate was certain. C'est difficile for an empath to walk on another's path behind them in the imprints of their feet, so close that he can smell the aroma so sweet of another soul to help, which will be that person's story, their fable of this rescuer that enabled the journey to be finished. What remained out of sight is the empath's energy, vapoured, diminished. One day, the Admiralty, having coffee and rum, stared out of leaded tudor glass and saw no gleaming dockyard, sun bouncing off brass, but a ship's graveyard slum with vessels in pieces, abandoned holes, cracked and rusted. Motionless captains collapsed on decks, judged and mistrusted by those in gold threads, misreading silence and life to failure of the dead, who peered from on high as those who steer vessels are not trained to break, withdraw and cry. The few crew still in their nests scan their feet and not new land, and never did they imagine their concrete captain break apart like dark wet sand. The word then reached the ports and towns in the far off lands of trade with silk and spice, now building up, demand slipping below what's made. They called a global amnesty of kind, where the speed and demands were stripped right back, so balance could caress the mind of those who had spent many a year propping up all others. And some ships, I have to note, are steered by sisters, but mostly are steered by brothers. The seafaring sisters of these vessels, what they do so very differently is meet and talk to the crew and keep quite close to their hearts and heads a chosen special few who will take these monkeys off to cages down below, managing the other cargo, so she's left with charts and compass directing them where to go. So if you're a captain of such a ship, please take note and be sure to keep an eye on your hull, which doesn't need to be shiny and new. Post refit it will dull, but be sure as you take on cargo and people, their ways, their stories and all of their issues, be strong, listen, get help with their baggage, be there for them with hugs and some tissues, and not pour out your energy into a tankard with a lid and ice for them to consume when you're not around, as the cost you will pay will be too high a price. Compartmentalize the heavy and discard the key. Where wind is concerned, know the side which is lee, as passengers can be so typically judgmental, so sails could be needed if your engine's temperamental. But some cargo will be helpful and will enhance your journey. Others, abandoned owners, will shapeshift into prosecuting attorneys. So be aware and be kind, as most ships on the seas are christened empath by captains that listen and take into their hold from memories to gold, and trust the intentions of these many interventions. Some who seek free space, sadly, will have nefarious motivations.